Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Show. You are listening to the first and only podcast dedicated to the business of pharmacy. Hear from independent pharmacy owners, leading entrepreneurs, political strategists, healthcare technology trends, career coaching, interviews about our pharmacy industry, and more. Be sure to subscribe to the show via iTunes and leave us a voice comment from our contact section on the website. You can find all of our episodes at pharmacypodcast.com.
Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your co-host in 2017, focused on your career development, Erin Albert. More on me over at my website, erinalbert.com. Today, I wanted to focus on a post that popped back up in my own LinkedIn feed that I almost forgot that I wrote. That was a while ago, and it was entitled 57 Cool Jobs for Pharmacists. Now, I'm not going to go through all 57 of them today with you on the podcast. I think that might go over our 20 to 25 minute time point with you. However, I did want to focus on some that I have received questions either online or offline about, and looked at some of the general themes for you to consider for your own career development that might be off the beaten path a little bit beyond the traditional ideas of retail community practice pharmacy versus hospital pharmacy versus even something like long-term care facility pharmacy or nuclear or some of the traditional pharmacy routes that a lot of pharmacists are aware of. So let's get into it. And first and foremost, I've got two things that I'll be posting for you in the show notes here. Number one, I'll give you a link to the 57 cool jobs from LinkedIn so you can take a look at all 57 of them. But more importantly, I want to hear from you, dear listeners. And thank you so much for your loyalty and listening to the Pharmacy Podcast. It's been a true honor serving you, in particular around the area of career development. And so after today's episode, I'd love it if you could all go online to the show notes and click on the survey that I put together, because I want to hear from you about what career development routes you'd love to hear more about on the Pharmacy Podcast. So here is your opportunity to voice your opinion, get involved, and tell me what it is that you'd like to see or hear more of on the Pharmacy Podcast in terms of career development, and I will do my very best to make those happen for you. So let's get into it. First, there is a group of ideas or concepts in terms of career development around wellness. So that could be everything from working for a large self-insured employer who hires either through a PBM or on its own a pharmacist to manage their patient population or employee population wellness, to writing up or developing or creating a wellness program across an organization. I know several healthcare professionals that have done that for large organizations. The other concept around wellness that is a career opportunity is coaching. So coaching, either life coaching, career coaching, which is more of what I do, or any combination thereof around wellness and coaching, development of your best life, if you will. Those are all opportunities for pharmacists, because at the end of the day, we are trained to become teachers, advisors, and experts in wellness and preventative medicine as well. So I think it's really important to consider wellness in this day and age. We're all living longer, and we want to definitely have quality of life, not just quantity of life. So that's a tremendous opportunity for pharmacists out there. So that's the first bucket that I wrote about in the post 57 Cool Jobs for Pharmacists. The next kind of bucket was around pharmaceutical industry. So I already had an episode that was separate on the medical science liaison, the field-based medical science liaison. You can give a listen to that. There is a health economics outcomes liaison, most of whom are pharmacists as well. Instead of focusing on clinical data, they focus on health economic and outcomes data and work with payers rather than necessarily thought leaders or academicians. There's regulatory affairs, where a lot of pharmacists work in-house at a pharmaceutical company and negotiate with agencies around their clinical data and new package inserts, new molecules, etc. There's clinical trial operation management, and that could be everything from looking at managing a clinical study all the way through to managing clinical trial drug inventory, which is a job I did in the past, all the way through to other opportunities within clinical trials like study site agreements and contracting and finance and indemnification agreements and managing site relationships with clinical investigators. So there's a whole ton of opportunity there for pharmacists. Publication planning, taking the clinical trial data and running statistics on it. So a lot of pharma companies will hire statisticians. And so if you love geeking out on statistics, that might be a great opportunity for you as well. So pharma and biotech medical devices all have a lot of these roles for pharmacists. The next big bucket that I wanted to talk about was agencies. So in the article, I've listed opportunities potentially with the Drug Enforcement Agency, CMS, the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, FDA themselves, the agency, either working on new molecules or working on data packages around generics. There are other groups like NIH, like NCI, lots of non-government organizations as well as government-related large federal agencies that have lots of opportunities for pharmacists as well. CDC being another one, and I didn't even list CDC on this particular list, so there you go. There's a bonus. So if you're into government agencies, that might be an option for you. The next big bucket was association work. And by that, I mean everything from running your local pharmacist organization or association to the state level, to national associations for pharmacists, all the way through to international associations. Now, they could be either pharmacy-focused associations or they could be therapeutically focused associations. So what do I mean by that? Something like the American Heart Association, Susan G. Komen. I mean, there's lots of associations out there that pharmacists could run. And the organization that I often point people to that have a career interest in this realm is ASAE. And they're the organization that actually does the certification that's called CAE, Certified Association Executive. And you'll see that on a few pharmacists' credentials over at LinkedIn if you take a look. And it's a pretty intensive certification. It's not something you can just get overnight. You have to have practical experience in tandem with other classroom learning around that certification. But that's yet another exciting realm for pharmacists to consider. Another bucket I talked about was writing. So we've had, of course, Dr. Elaine Voci on the podcast before in 2 episodes. I would encourage you to go back and listen to her. The other opportunity around medical writing, if you're curious and want to know more, of course, is the American Medical Writers Association, or AMWA. They have an annual meeting. They have certifications and classes and all kinds of information around how to be a medical writer. The other organization that I really like for drug information back in pharma, as well as writing, publication planning, some statistics, drug information, is the Drug Information Association. DIAHome.org is their association website. And they have lots of shorter courses on particular areas for pharmacy and for pharma in general. And most of them center around clinical trial development, regulatory affairs, and all the other areas that I mentioned before. Medical affairs, etc. Teaching is another huge theme. And again, because we're coaches, we are these wellness experts, what the other opportunity there is to teach. Now, that could be on the technician side. Our own Tony Guerra, for example, teaches techs, and that's a great opportunity. The other area is faculty at a school of pharmacy. And if you're in academia, there's a lot of routes there, not just faculty. So let's say you want to move into administration, either at the School of Pharmacy level, become a dean someday, or you want to move into university administration, which is a whole other realm, people like provosts and presidents of universities. The organization that I really like on the university administrative side is called ACE, and they have tons of classes and really great programming on helping early or mid-stage faculty make this leap to administration. Of course, the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy is all the pharmacy faculty as the association there. So lots of opportunity there as well. And, I never thought I would be teaching as a faculty member in a school of pharmacy. And 10 years later, I could check that off the list. The other big bucket that I wanted to talk about in this particular episode is entrepreneurship. And that's one that I get asked about a lot of times. And so I want to share kind of my bifurcated philosophy on entrepreneurship when it comes to pharmacy. And I've written about this in several different books. There are two ways that you can go about entrepreneurship in pharmacy. Number one is the quote unquote traditional route where you literally start your own pharmacy. Maybe you buy out another pharmacist. Maybe you're in a small town. But you're definitely in a mom and pop pharmacy and you're running the show. Now that is the very traditional form of starting a pharmacy and being an entrepreneur within pharmacy. What I think is more interesting, and that's my own personal and biased opinion, is the concept behind the other things that entrepreneurial pharmacists can do. So for example, in my life, I'm writing and publishing and speaking and teaching. Whereas other pharmacists may want to start an app on the side. Other pharmacists have separate companies on the side that have nothing to do with pharmacy and healthcare. And I've interviewed a lot of those folks. So in addition, in this second bucket of pharmacists, they are still working on their day jobs. So they do their entrepreneurial side hustle literally on the side. It's either part-time or it feels like a full-time additional job at times. But at the end of the day, the pharmacists never wanted to leave pharmacy per se, but they wanted to add on something of their very own. And I think that's so important these days to consider having a portfolio career, lots of things going on professionally, rather than putting all your career eggs in one basket. So I will post these 57 jobs, and I wanted to just put out a very short episode to kind of get you thinking about this. And more importantly, wanted to involve you in guiding the content of this podcast moving forward. So what I'm going to do is create this survey. I will put it in the show notes for this particular episode. What I need you all to do is go out and vote and tell me what your top picks are for hearing from actual pharmacists that are doing these actual jobs. And like I said, I either know someone that's done them or is doing them, and I will do my very, very best to try to get you someone that's actually living and breathing these particular jobs, if for no other reason to show and give you the hope that it's possible. There's more out there than, just the two traditional roles of retail and hospital. And again, there's nothing wrong with those two, but I definitely want to help show you that there's a whole lot more that's super exciting and coming our way to pharmacy. So this is Erin Albert. I hope you enjoyed this very short episode. But again, want to get your feedback on how and what you'd like to hear about moving forward relative to your career development. Until next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Pharmacy Podcast. This episode was brought to you by my new book, The She/He Says Guide to Mentoring. With one of my own mentors, Dr. David Horst, he and she provide insights on how to set up mentoring programs for women and provide general insights on how you can get your own board of advisors. Log on to erinalbert.com/books and you'll find it for sale there.